A very good morning to you guys. Welcome to our Sake Online. This is Brighton Ncube speaking, and this is an award-winning show, man, multi-award-winning show. And to say that, and shout out to Mr. Ali there behind the scenes there for us bringing 2 hours for the CITE View, man. Thanks so much, guys, for choosing us every day and supporting us. What we do every day is CITE. Today on the show, we look at 16 days of activism in terms of commemorating 16 days of activism against eliminating of violence on women and the girl child. And joining me to understand that more is Kuda Kunze, director from Women Association of Survivors and an author. She's written many books around the issues of GBV and also has been advocating for safe spaces for women across the country. Kuda, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brighton.
Yeah, so far last time we spoke about the issues of 16 days of activism. Are we winning in terms of having safe spaces in Zimbabwe?
Slowly we are, but then we still need to put in some work to ensure that in every space, be it at home, in the community, workspaces, everyone feels safe. For example, in the community, when someone is abused, right, people talk. Someone reached out and said, I got triggered today. There's someone who was asking me questions, you know, actually it was a guy asking this girl out. So he said, so where do you stay? She told him, then she was like, oh, you stay there by that bishop who's a rapist. Already that person is on the receiving end of that perpetrator that is being labeled. So for her, it was a trigger. There is still stigma for both the perpetrators and the survivors. So there's still more work to be done in the communities to sensitize people so that people understand that no one asks us to be abused. And when that happens, we shouldn't label that that's where the rapist stays. What if I used to stay with that rapist? Maybe you now know my story. So now a lot of people won't speak out, of which only 4% of people get to report those cases. So you can imagine how many more people are not reporting. So we need to resensitize our communities effectively and find ways to create a user-friendly community. And also in the workspaces, we've got a lot of people in power. You know, they abuse their power. They abuse women. If you cannot sleep with me, it means I'm going to cut down your salary. If you want to speak up about that, I'm going to say the only thing you can do is to sleep with me. So a lot of women are coerced into sleeping with their bosses. So it shows that there is something that needs to be done. We need to put in work so that there are policies that can be put in place and stiffer penalties, and also create a safe space for women or anyone who has their boss who's intimidating them, abusing them, to be able to report freely without feeling intimidated. And also we go to the police. It's difficult for people to communicate or to go and report to the police because it's either you are laughed at, or they will start asking you, what were you wearing? Or they'll say, Sergeant Zbani or Constable Zbani, come and listen. Can you explain again? Then there are 5 police officers. You are explaining your story and they haven't even started taking your statement. So that on its own, someone can go and share their experience that they would have received at the police station. Then they don't report. Other people won't report. So we really need to work towards resensitizing, be it the police, the community, the hospitals. We once had an encounter. I had a client that I went with to the hospital. And this is a big hospital. And the nurses started saying, the doctor cannot see this person because this case is not from Bulawayo, you know. But our law says you can report your case wherever you are. This person couldn't report their case because they were at risk. So they had to come to Bulawayo first, then we helped them report the case. The police referred us to this big hospital, and the nurses were saying negative things in front of this survivor. And already she's traumatized, you see. So at the end of the day, people do not go and report, and we cannot see if we're really making a huge impact in ending gender-based violence. And we also have forced marriages. There are churches that are still doing the same. And it's we do have laws that are in place that you can only get married to a girl that's 18 years because she's mature enough. But then we're having kids that are 12 years, that are 13 years, that are getting married. And also with this drought that we're having here in Zimbabwe, it's also going to contribute to the spiking of those rates of gender-based violence. So to be honest, a lot has to be done.
Yeah, I'd like to come through the issue of society and also to say our culture. We are too embedded in our culture. We love our culture. But also they are saying, you know, and so on. When someone is enduring pain, being beaten daily. Speak to us more about how do we then change the culture narrative that are there, but being beaten daily. How do we change those narratives?
We need to start having intergenerational conversations. We understand that back then, marriage was sacred. They really valued marriage. And if going back home after being married, you had a term, Umabuye Wendin. And who would want to get married to Umabuye Wendin? You have brought shame to your family. So those things, people are scared of that. So we need to start having conversations with our elders and understand why they say umendo uyabegezelo. It's interesting now that we find a lot of parents, when they are marrying off their daughters, they would say, Mkwenyana, if I want you to take care of my child properly, but please don't beat my child. It shows that we are slowly changing. These are elderly people that have been in spaces or that have had the opportunity to attend workshops or places where they talk about all those things.
Yeah, being exposed.
Yes, they are being exposed. Then we have people that are not exposed to this information. For example, maybe people in the rural areas and people in other churches, because their church does not allow them to actually take knowledge outside from church, you see. So maybe if we start going there, not attacking them, but approaching them from a space of wanting to understand where they are coming from so that we can meet in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you've been dealing with male survivors as well and also female survivors. There's the notion that men don't want to speak out. You've seen many suicides happening in Bulawayo, men don't want to speak out, be it the economic situation, be it any family problem that they're facing. Maybe speak to us more about how have you dealt with males who are victims? Are they speaking out? Is it difficult to sit down with them and let them speak out about their issues?
The men that we've been working with don't want to report. That's the truth. Why? The example that I used earlier, that you go to the police station, you report, and you are a bright one. People know you, and you're reporting. They'll say, come here, but to tell me, you know, already you are ashamed that you're being abused by your wife or your girlfriend. You understand? Now, you're going to the police seeking help, trying to speak out. But then you're being laughed at. Already you are traumatized because your mind was not trained to deal with a woman that beats you, to deal with a woman that tells you that you're not man enough. And you're trying so hard not to beat that woman. And that woman will tell you, if you don't beat me, you're a dog. Then you go to the police, they laugh at you. So no, men are not speaking up. Yes, we have had men that have come through for counseling sessions. We're giving them counseling sessions. And we have been seeing progress. And some of their partners are also willing to engage and to get help, you know. So we then offer partner counseling sessions. So for now, it's a start. We have to start somewhere, right? But we would love the community to start understanding that mental health is a real issue. And there's nothing wrong if you feel like you are depressed. There's nothing wrong if you're going through something, you're not weak. Talking about it actually shows that you are a strong person, because it takes courage. For men, you are not taught from a very young age that when there's something wrong with you, speak. Indoda, kwamele ibe indoda ayikhali. So a lot of men are riding on that. That's why we are having a spike on suicides here in Bulawayo, and it's really sad. It's really sad. We should create spaces and homes where you can talk to your partner. If you cannot talk to your partner, go for therapy sessions. It helps. And to be honest with the economy here in Zimbabwe, it's really contributing a lot. So for example, depression just doesn't ride or thrive on one issue. There might be an issue, but something might trigger it. You see? So the economy already, it's stressful to everyone. Then you experience verbal abuse. And also there is sexual abuse to men, you know. Men are being sexually abused, especially those who get drunk, pass out and stuff. And it's hard for them to talk about those things. So we need to understand each other. To have empathy, we need to have empathy.
But still on that, Kuda, the issue of economy, right? You spoke earlier about issue of carpet interviews, whereby if you want a job, sleep with the boss and so on. Even it happens in universities, right? Die for a mark and so on. People are desperate to pass, to go through to the next stage because they is bad in the country, right? Speak to us more about those students, die for a mark, you know, people, carpet interviews and so on. And speak to us more about that. Do you have ever encountered anything like that in terms of the counseling and the victims of that?
Well, I did encounter someone close to me, rather. She failed her exam, so she had to carry. So another lecturer said, you can come, I can help you over the weekend. But he then said, come to my office. The office is not by the school premises. So she had to go. Then when she got there, she said, they kind of started, you know, with the lecture, but along the way, the conversation changed. And I was glad she was brave enough to record everything. But when I initiated that we reported, she was scared that they might make her fail. So she couldn't go through with the reporting. So if only we can have maybe structures where the students can report anonymously, you know, and we should try by all means, no matter how much you are given, you know, or offered, to protect their identities, because already this child is trying. And now there's this man who wants to abuse her so that she can get marks or she can get proper help that she needs to pass. You know, it's really stressful, confusing for the students at the end of the day. So we need structures in universities, these structures that are supposed to work with the victim-friendly unit, you know. I think we can start there, because my worry, to be honest, is the corruption. There's so much corruption. And chances are those students can never get justice.
Yeah. Speaking of corruption again, someone goes and reports a story to say a case to say I've been abused at home and so on and so on. And then the victim is arrested, and then 2 weeks later the victim is out, right, on bail and so on. Speak of the triggers now, Kuda, to say Is it easy, difficult to say now that I've cancelled this the victim, but the perpetrator is now out on bail and so on, for me to move on while my perpetrator, my Mton Repair is out there walking scot-free? Is it easy? Is it counted in terms of cancelling? Is it easy or difficult to say after cancelling, but however, perpetrator is out there?
It's not easy because with cancelling, it just doesn't work like this, like magic. If you come today for counseling, it doesn't mean all your problems are gone. It's a process. Healing is a process. So constantly seeing that person, sometimes when a person is wounded, they might have ugly thoughts. So that's why you get to see people who then commit suicides. Those are also ugly thoughts. They choose to end their life since justice chose the perpetrator. The justice system has really failed a lot of people. We have heard cases where the perpetrator walks scot-free and they actually say, I paid bribe, you see. And we also have cases where the police would say the fine is supposed to be 200 or bail. Then the perpetrator's family might say, we don't have such an amount. They would say, how much do you have? That's corruption. That's corruption. I had a similar case like that. For it wasn't, those people were dating, but the guy was older, the girl was younger, the girl's parents reported. Then this guy was locked up. And when the whole process was going on, they reached out to me. Funny enough, the guy's family reached out to me. They said, what should we do? They actually sent an audio from the police because they did record, you know, and the other police officer was like, if you want this guy to come out, you need to pay fine for 200 today. Then the father to this guy was like, we don't have 200. I need to go back home and talk to other relatives. Then they were like, even 150. Okay, how much do you have? There is no such thing. They sent me the audio. I told them that if he is wrong, let him go to prison. But if this girl loves his boyfriend, she will go and drop the charges and talk to the police. But don't pay the fine. They didn't. The girl went, she said, this is my boyfriend. I lied, I am not pregnant. Because the issue was also about pregnancy. She said, I'm not pregnant. You see, the guy is out. So this came to light that a lot of people, if this guy was at fault, because he was at fault, this was underage, right? It means a lot of people are walking scot-free. So why do we have the police? Why do we have the justice system if it's rigid? We need a justice system and we need the police to be a space or a service provider where we get the help that we need. Because if we sugarcoat those things, to be honest, we're not doing anything as activists. There is no change. We need change. By 2030, we should see change. Next year, we should see change in reported cases, in stories shared. There should be change. And also, it's heartbreaking to also encounter perpetrators who are law enforcers. We trust the law enforcement, but they are letting us down. Yes, we know they are just people in the uniform, but they take an oath. They need to protect us as citizens. So I hope something is going to be done in terms of corruption.
But we're involved in counseling department, right? We're counseling many victims, right? Speak to us about the issue of therapy and counseling. Do people understand therapy and counseling? What, I'm going to therapy to speak to a stranger. I'm going to counseling to speak to a stranger. Do people understand those things? Or we're still in the primitive stage whereby I can't speak about my issues to a stranger?
Well, people don't really understand what therapy is or what counseling is. People think the counselor or the therapist has to give me advice and I'll be good. But that's not how it all works. And some people are really scared. The first session is really intense. It's hard to open up, you know. And in my case, having a man open up to me, usually they say, so how old are you? Then I ask, is my age going to be a problem? They'll say, no, I was just asking, you know. They feel like maybe with therapy, they need an elderly person, maybe they can be comfortable with them. However, with some, they're actually comfortable with strangers because they would say, I don't care if that person is going to talk about it because I don't know them. They don't know the people that I associate with, you see. But with counseling, by oath, we're not supposed to share what you would share in the therapy session. So we're big on confidentiality. However, people still have trust issues when it comes to confidentiality.
I remember last time I did an interview with two pastors here on site. So I asked them around the issue of saying safe spaces. So say if I go and tell a pastor about my issues, I'm being beaten at home by my wife, I tell a pastor, on Sunday I'm the church sermon, they're not preaching about me. Do you have safe spaces in the society to say I can tell Kuda, or also cancel, I can tell a friend, Mr. Ali, about my issues? Is there anything called safe spaces in our communities?
No. At this moment, we don't. We don't have safe spaces. Just yesterday, in a combi, people were talking about someone who was being beaten by their husband, and there are women talking about it. She came to me, she said A, B, C, D, you know. So there are no safe spaces.
How do you achieve that, Kuda, to have safe spaces whereby I can speak about my issues, you can tell me your issues, just your issues, but no one judges you? How do you get there to have safe spaces?
We need to get into the community. Share what confiding in a person means and what it would mean when you betray me and share with someone my secret, because coming to you and talking to you, it's between you and me, it means it's a secret. And I would ask you not to tell anyone, you know. I trust you. So once you betray that trust, that person has another trauma, they are experiencing another trauma, you know. They now have trust issues, even if when they come to a professional therapist, they still have trust issues. So I think we need to sensitize the community, or at least have maybe a structure in the community where one can go with their problem and share, you know, like in the rural areas, maybe Guletale, Labafana, you know, Lamatota, you go and share with someone that you're comfortable with. But that particular person has to at least get training on how to be able to preserve the confidentiality of your identity and your story. So it's something that we really need to work on, not just as one counselor or one organization. We need a lot of organizations to then say, let's map a way forward when we're going into the community on how we can address these issues. Because already going to the community, talking about it, other people will feel attacked because they would feel that they're talking about me. They might feel attacked. So we also need to find or to develop user-friendly approaches into the community so that we can create a safe space for everyone, because not everyone can afford counseling, not everyone can afford transport fee to get into town. And we should also use the community centers in our communities, maybe to just have a therapist there. Maybe we can start from there.
Lastly, Kuda, is about our show this morning. Let's talk about the upcoming book. I know you've been writing about survivors, about victims, and so on. Speak about your letters from victims to perpetrators. Speak about that book.
So the book that I'm working on is called Skeletons to My Flesh. And we have letters from different survivors writing to their perpetrators, just taking us through the whole journey. This book is going to be a book that's going to bring light, to shed light to people who are not victims or who have never been victims before to abuse, any type of abuse. And also highlighting that anyone can be a victim. You might be white, black, you might be a working class, you might be a vendor, you might be a stay-at-home person. Anyone can be a victim of abuse in any space, you see. So this book, we want to make people understand, because people are too quick to judge, especially to judge the victim. What did you do to provoke that person? What were you wearing? All those things. And we also have a section where perpetrators also write letters to their victims who are now survivors, on maybe they are apologizing. It depends on how they want to write their letter, because only them can share their thoughts with everyone. So that book, it's just a book to help us heal, because other people, maybe after reading, they might feel like it's time to speak up. Maybe a perpetrator who's abusing someone might read that book and understand that they are actually inflicting pain on someone, they're actually abusing someone. And also just to bring light about rights, because a lot of people don't know their rights, to be honest. They don't understand them. They just know I have a right, but which right do you have? They don't know all those things. So that book will bring light, and we hope it's going to also help a lot of people to heal and speak up, and also continue sharing their stories to empower different people in Zimbabwe, even outside Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Kuda, thanks so much for your time, for joining us today on CITE Online. It's a pleasure talking to you about GBV and also about 16 days of activism.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. Well, that's been a pleasure talking to Kuda Kunze, the director of Women Association of Survivors, speaking about many things when it comes to therapy, counseling of victims of gender-based violence. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Kuda is also a gender champion at the Dutch Embassy. She's championing women's issues across the country. If you want to reach out to them, follow them on Twitter. They are there. They're on Facebook as well as Women Association of Survivors. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you this morning. Please do follow CITE on all platforms. Twitter, we're there. Facebook, we're there. YouTube, we're there as well. For myself, Brighton Ncube, it's bye for now.